This is the hour of night when Slender Man is going to appear outside your window and start breathing heavily, wondering why you're not in bed, and looking at stuff on the internet instead. Just okay, enough of that random stuff. Okay, this is yet another total drama related video. And unlike last time, I'm going to try to keep some sort of coherent discussion going on instead of going off the wall and poking fun at really random stuff like Alejandro lost his boot like I did in the last video. This week's episode, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I like some of the high points of the showdown between Mal and Alejandro. I especially enjoyed one particular scene where Alejandro grabbed Mal by the midsection and was trying to hold him there, and then Mal's solution is to access Svetlana's gymnastic abilities and starts swinging back and forth like a monkey and bashing him into the monkey floors. It's great. That scene alone made the entire episode for me. I may not dig the entire episode itself, but that scene alone makes it worth watching a second time. That scene alone. Just that would be worth watching. If somebody took that and made a YouTube clip or a 10-minute loop of that repeating, if you do that, you deserve to be given a great big amount of money, because just that scene made the entire episode for me personally. But, well, it was kind of entertaining to watch high moments like that where the two were kind of going back and forth at each other like, I'm the bigger bad guy than you. There's a couple of points where it feels like it could have been done better. Like the 100th episode, where Chris got kidnapped by Zeke. Or rather, the episode, or I think it was that episode, they made a huge plot point out of Alejandro finding the DVD with the footage of Mal on it. Why didn't he take advantage of it? It's just, gah. Honestly, it would have been much more clever writing, in my opinion, to have it to the point where, yeah, Alejandro got voted off unanimously already. But just before he does, he pulls out some sort of projector screen and reveals Mal. My personal perspective on it is this. When it comes to writing a certain scene, there may be certain plot points that you don't want to push ahead right away. In other words, because they'd be difficult to write, difficult to construct, and it may not be quite an easy path to keep the plot going as smoothly as you'd like because of this plot point. But it amps up viewer intrigue. It makes it that much more interesting. If you bring up the main plot point, have it happen and unveil it. Keep viewer intrigue. Keep them on their toes. They had me hooked for a while with the Mal and Alejandro showdown. I kept watching because I wanted to see what happened in this episode. I wanted to see what these two intimidating and ferocious villains would be like facing off against each other. And the payoff, there were some things that I can honestly say I severely enjoyed, but others not so much. And my biggest complaint is just how stupid Alejandro was. He should have found a way to unveil Mal sooner. I mean, why spend all that time waffling around? Wouldn't it have been smarter to try and bait everybody to go into the fancy spa hotel for some reason or another, say it was a prompt from Chris to meet up for the new challenge, and then as soon as everybody was there, play that footage on a projector in the main room or something? That would have been a great plot point somewhere in the episode. Of course, there'd be the possibility that Mal would get voted off sooner, but that's exactly what would make it that much more interesting to watch if he really was at the threat of getting voted off. If he and Alejandro were really on shifty ground, that they that either one could be the next one to go. There wasn't any kind of that sort of tension or build-up in this week's episode. You knew Alejandro was leaving. The lowest expectations I had was... Again, I'm not entirely displeased with how this week's episode played out. I loved the bits where they were facing up against each other. I loved when Mal and Alejandro were confronted each other directly for the first time. But in that situation, it did seem pretty brash and bold on Alejandro's part to reveal his entire hand of what he held against Mal. That doesn't seem like the way he'd go. That just doesn't seem like something he'd do. In World Tour, he played things subtly. He tried to get people to fall into his plans and only revealed himself at the last second. He even referred to himself as a sleeping crocodile. I'm not going to try to speak Spanish. If you can tell just from most of my natural speech most of the time, I have a tendency to mispronounce certain words. But aside from that, another thing. There's one big plot point. The one thing that Mal used to get everybody on his side and definitely unite them against Alejandro. He could have done that without this plot point, but still, what he did was he told them that he saw Alejandro let Cameron hang and fall when he fell down the hole in the previous episode. There's a couple of things about that particular plot point. One being, Alejandro did technically do that, so Mal wasn't lying. He may have done it himself, but Al did technically kick himself in the shin when he left Cameron to hang like that. Even though he was pulling his typical devil's advocate thing, he really did do that. So Mal really could use that as legitimate leverage. But another duality in that plot point, when Alejandro approached Cameron and he was hanging from that root, clinging for his life, again, that was kind of out of character for him. There were several cases where he did say that somebody had to do a favor for him first and he expected them to return it in a very ambiguous manner in World Tour. But one of the plot points that I think got glossed over, remember the scene where Gwen got electrocuted by a bunch of eels and then it looked like she might drown or something? He dived right in after her and rescued her. That's one of the biggest plot points that, I don't know, I think most people recognize it, or it just seems to get glossed over and sort of pushed up by the wayside. That's something you really could have brought up at some point. I was actually kind of hoping that he tried to forge an alliance with Gwen. And he could legitimately leverage that against her. He could have coaxed her into an alliance by bringing that up. And another thing, why would he just leave Cameron to hang like that just because Cameron wouldn't necessarily acquiesce to his demands right away? It seems more like it'd be more in character for him if he helped the guy out. Regardless of whether or not Cameron went along with them, he could still push the whole, "you owe me a favor for saving your life" thing, or something like that. I'm not calling Al a virtuous or knight in shining armor character by any means, but he does play the role if he knows he can use it to his advantage. I'm really surprised that wasn't brought up again any time with Gwen. It was just kind of a random scene, then push it along, kick it under the rug, and move aside. Yeah, if there's any there's some continuity traced up with season 3 up to season 5. That's honestly one of the scenes I think would have been interesting to address and bring up again. Okay, I guess I'm really not arguing my case for what points I did like about the episode. I was kind of sitting on the edge of my seat during the scene where they were going through the obstacle course, and it was really at the point where Mal and Alejandro were starting to face off against each other. It was when they met up at the monkey bars, and then after that, when they got to the God, I can't remember the name of that right now, but when they were sliding across the chasm to get to the other side, and it's just like sitting on the edge of my seat wondering who's going to get there. There might be an extra chance that Alejandro might still reveal Mal. There might be still a chance of that. And I was actually kind of rooting for the guy to get through the obstacle course and get to the finish line and get just one more episode of immunity. If it meant he'd uncover Mal, if it meant unveil him, just a little bit more of that tension, I'd love to see it. And then just, God, my hopes are dashed. But I do gotta give him credit for that particular scene. I was staring intently at my computer screen, started going like, God, let's get yeah, that's really one of the few times the season has reeled me in like that. There's been a couple of scenes like that. I really gotta... I know I've been talking more specifically about Alejandro and Mal, but one of the bigger aspects of the episode, how about the developing friendship between Gwen and Zoe? That is one plot element I really gotta give credit for. There's been some positive character development for Zoe this season, especially in her interaction with Gwen. I love how the two's personalities play off of each other. I mean, she's really nice, she knows how to handle a stressful situation. It's great. I'm kinda, and she seemed to come across as the kind of character that people would talk to and admit their problems to. That was really interesting. Seeing Courtney vent about her situation to Zoe, and then how Zoe gave her reasonable advice, sort of playing the counselor. I remember reading a certain snippet in Zoe's bio about her wanting to become a teacher. I can see it from just those couple of scenes, just from the way she interacted with both Gwen and Courtney. And in the previous episode with the scene where she calmed Gwen down and helped her get through hyperventilating and being fearful of being in such a confined, claustrophobic space. That was another really strong scene for Zoe. That is a major positive in the episode's favor, aside from the questionable dislike thing I had towards the Mal and Alejandro face-off. Even though I'm kind of disappointed that some of the potential for that sort of went circling down the drain, I'm still curious to see how Mal's going to be taken down. I'm actually kind of hoping he gets unveiled pretty soon. That there's the big reveal, that he gets uncovered, and then he just comes out full-blown Mal and starts terrorizing, just starts becoming a lot more merciless, just no more restriction on his part, just merciless, just... It's kind of weird to say that, but you're starting to get more hints of that as the series goes along. Have him get completely unleashed within the next episode. It'd be really interesting to see how the other contestants face up to that. Is Zoe gonna go commando Zoe again, or what's gonna happen there? Most of... really the one character that's been keeping me tuning in every week, despite being kind of iffy about Joe getting voted off and several other things, as soon as Mal really started getting developed, I have been hooked. I love that villain, love him. He's even taken Alejandro's place as my favorite villain. I outright admit it. I love the guy. I love that he's chaos personified or something like that. I seem to have a soft spot for villains like that, hence why Discord, the god of chaos, and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. That's my favorite villain for that series. Of course, these two are entirely different entities, but just any kind of villain that has to do with creating wanton chaos and loving chaos. I love that trope with villains. I don't necessarily know why, but just watching Mel on screen, I don't know what it is about him, but the more I see of him, the more I love seeing him in action. He's a great villain for this show. Definitely one of the big redeeming factors for Season 5, along with the rekindled and revitalized Gwen and Courtney friendship. That's another aspect I really like, and I will not leave out the Scott and Courtney romance. I am hoping that plot point gets resolved soon because, God, they're so awkward and dorky together that it's just, I don't care that they were kind of slapped together. I know that I've kind of griped about that sort of construction in the past, but these two are so dorky, I'm willing to overlook it. I love how awkward Scott is. I actually like him this season. I hated him in Revenge of the Island, but I love him here. I love him with Courtney. He's so awkward, it's adorable. Well, that's really all I'm going to say about that particular episode, or rather, the past two. The biggest thing I wanted to discuss was, well, the shaky development of the character Alejandro. Just that more than anything else. I kind of wonder if there's going to be, if in the final episode there's going to be some kind of peanut gallery thing. Wouldn't it be really fun if they had Alejandro sitting next to Heather? He was trying to make moves on her. She was like, move! Just like, God. After Season 5, that's the last we're going to be seeing of those two, so I think it's pretty much set in stone what's going to happen with that particular pairing, but I think it'd be pretty funny to just see him give one last hurrah. That's really the last thing I'm going to say on that particular topic. Well, that's the end of this video. Really all I have to say on that for this week.